Hi there, this is Lois DeWitt. I'm going to give you the introduction lecture that I give to my students for the acrylic painting classes, just so you know what to expect before you even look at the lessons. We're going to talk a little bit first about the beginning acrylic classes and what you get with those. Keep in mind this is free online art classes. All of these lessons are completely free, no cost to you. And I've written them with probably about 40 years of teaching experience behind them. So I've done a lot of testing, a lot of experimenting with students, and come up with a really good course outline and lessons that I think you will really enjoy if you're interested in getting into acrylic painting. So the beginning painting classes, like any beginning class that I teach, I like to acquaint the students first with the materials. Talk about what the materials are needed for acrylic painting, the types of acrylic paint the students use. Usually it's student quality, what to paint on. We talk about canvas board versus stretched canvas. We talk about acrylic paper, painting paper, which I'm not really too cool with. We talk about brushes and what kinds of brushes to use. Synthetic bristle is good. There doesn't have to be a great expenditure with these materials, but the students do have to get pretty good quality paints to start with, and some canvas board and stretched canvases. Also, then we talk about water containers and paper towels and other things that they may need, so they can put all of their materials together, and when they come to the class they can begin. And on free online art classes you will see that there's a very succinct list of materials that you will need to begin the lesson. Beginning lesson, lesson 1, students experiment with the way acrylic paint works. I put them through some color mixing exercises, which you will see on the website, and how to make light and shadow, how to take one color into another by gradation, and that's like either black to white or red to white or red to green. Gradation is really important because it is the one skill that produces volume and depth and spatial qualities in acrylic painting. So brushwork, blending, gradation, all of these things are practiced before we even start talking about subject matter, because I think with beginning students, they have to be confident in just using the materials first. Then they can. So once students are acquainted with their materials they're using, we start dealing with very simple shapes. Triangles, which can become a pyramid, a circle, which can become a sphere, all by shading and gradation. So that is a principal skill, and that's what we practice in the second lesson, and that's what you will have in your second lesson as well. Then we start with the subject matter. So lesson 3 in free online art classes deals with still life, and you set up a couple objects, put a light on it, and start painting. There is a bit of drawing skills that are required here, and we review that. I review that with my students, and I talk about it in the lessons for the still life. Once the painting of objects is achieved, when I can see that students are really accomplishing that with some degree of success, then we can go on into landscape. So as you can imagine, the landscape presents a lot of challenges, but at this time I feel that most students are pretty confident with the material they're using. They have some drawing skills that they learned working with still life, working with light and shadow and blending colors. So the landscape is not too intimidating, although it opens up a whole different area of textures, lighting effects, not just one light source, but several light sources, how to paint water, how to paint rocks, how to blend the color so you get the sky that you like. So this really expands the painting skills into a whole new area. On lesson 5, and in free online art classes, and the way I teach, this is another challenge. It is a self-portrait. So the self-portrait is done with a student looking in a mirror at themselves. Now this is really challenging because painting oneself is not easy. For one thing, you have this personality problem of just looking at yourself, and that can be rather intimidating. So what it teaches actually is to be objective, to really just look at something and be able to put it down and then to paint it. And as you might expect, and this is something I bring up in the lessons as well in free online art classes, skin and hair are very complicated. So you have to treat these things simply, but be aware of all the different colors that are in skin, the greens and pinks and yellows and blues, and then the shading as well. And oftentimes these are very subtle. So this particular exercise, self-portrait, teaches the student how to be objective and how to become sensitive to very, very subtle. Now lesson 6 in Beginning Acrylic Painting, in free online art classes and also the way I teach, is really the last lesson in Beginning Acrylic Painting. By this time students have some sort of drawing skills, operative at least, and they are well acquainted with how paint works, how to put the paint down, and how to get the effects that they need, shading, color, brushwork. So the last lesson, now this is, for a lot of students, this has been a lot to climb over. You know, this is over like a 4 or 5 week period, and it's a lot to climb over. And if you go through the lessons in free online art classes, you will probably feel that as well. A lot of input that I get from online students say that, wow, you know, I've really come a long way. And in the lessons I say, yes, indeed, if you've done all of these lessons so far, you have come a long way. So this is the lesson 6 is kind of a breather in a way, because it is abstract painting. But it's not a random thing. It's actually really important. At this point, students really need to experiment, because in intermediate they're going to be working towards their own personal style. So they have their skills fairly much underway. And I say, do an abstract painting then for lesson 6, which involves choice of canvas, size of canvas, any color, any style, any way the student wants to paint. It's the first actually acquaintance towards finding one's way with acrylic. Really interesting with this last beginning lesson that I find that the students split into 2 groups with the abstract painting. One group will go off and really experiment with brand new ways of painting, new color palette, putting paint down, and different materials, even introducing other materials. And then the other group will just keep on working the way they have. It will be more or less a reiteration of the skills they've learned, just without subject matter like a still life or a self-portrait. There will be images, and there always are with abstract painting anyway. You really never get away from subject matter. But so the 2 groups are interesting because one group represents a more experimental approach, and the other is more conservative in the sense that this group is committed to just reiterating pretty much the skills that they're using, very cautiously going into a new venue. Both of these things I've found can be very successful going into intermediate painting. Whether a person is just inching along very carefully with their painting skills, or whether they're ready just to take off and go into some completely new things. The first intermediate lesson addresses those 2 students. So that's going to be my next lecture. Now I would hope that you go into the lessons in free online art classes, really look at the beginning acrylic lessons, and then do try them. Keep in mind that you can always email me with comments and suggestions and information on how you are progressing. So good luck and have fun.